The Pentagon says U.S. military airstrikes earlier this week killed 4 Iranian-backed militia members. The strikes targeted the insurgents while they were in Syria. The Pentagon says the attack was in response to recent strikes, including one earlier this week against U.S. service members. Those attacks are blamed on groups backed by Tehran. And we go now to James Phillips, Senior Research Fellow for Middle Eastern Affairs at the Heritage Foundation. James, thanks so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. A lot to get to regarding Iran, but first, let's talk about the U.S. airstrikes. Your thoughts, and do you think it was the appropriate response?
I think it was the appropriate response. Iran's proxy militias that is mobilized from throughout the Middle East, including Shiite Muslim militants from Lebanon that belong to Hezbollah, and groups of Shia from Iraq, from Syria, from Yemen, and the group that the U.S. hit reportedly was an Afghan Shia militia that Iran mobilized as part of its Foreign Legion. These groups have been attacking the roughly 900 U.S. forces that are still in Syria to prevent ISIS from reemerging.
And James, what has been Iran's response to the strikes, and what type of impact do you think this will have as the Biden administration seeks to revive the Iran nuclear deal?
Iran denies it has any connection to this militia, which is a joke. As usual, it's lying through its teeth. I don't think Iran will react because it's denied that it itself was attacked. But I think this is a sign that the Biden administration must take into account Iran's duplicity and continued attacks as it's looking at the Iran nuclear deal, because Iran's regime cannot be trusted on either front.
Yeah, and as you know, earlier this week, the European Union proposed a draft agreement to revive the Obama-era deal. What do we know about that EU draft and apparently, I guess, some concessions that were made by Iran?
Well, we know that whatever emerges is going to be shorter and more risky than the original nuclear agreement signed back in 2015. And unfortunately, it looks like it keeps the same sunset deadlines. That is, the key restrictions on Iran's nuclear program dissolve, or they sunset. And by the year 2030, Iran will be in a position to sprint to a nuclear weapon under this deal, even if it maintains all its obligations under the deal. At the end of it, it will be in a much better position, and it will have billions of dollars in sanctions relief from the U.S. that will not only strengthen it and strengthen its threat to the U.S., but strengthen its threat to U.S. allies in the region.
Yeah, and the Biden administration has signaled that it may support this draft proposal, but of course not everyone is on board, especially Israel. Let's talk a little bit more about that and Israel's concerns.
Well, today, Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz was meeting with the U.S. National Security Council advisor, Jake Sullivan, and he reportedly stressed to the U.S. that it needs not only economic sanctions, but a military option if it's going to hold Iran's feet to the fire and deter Iran from future attacks. And I think that message is the correct one, because I don't believe that economic sanctions alone will stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon any more than they stopped North Korea. It's important to have a credible military option so that Iran knows that if it breaks the deal, it will pay a heavy price.
Well, James, thank you so much for your time today and for weighing in. We appreciate it.
Thank you.